Welcome to Packers Week, Sammy. Of course it's Packers Week. Do you remember back in August, all those even before August, July, all these times where our biggest fear? I remember going through the schedule, and we did this. We went through the schedule with Bragg. So let me tweet this out to make sure everybody's following along and letting us know what's happening. In August, coming in and looking at the schedule and being like, you know what, we're going to be 7-2. The biggest fear that we had was that we were going to be too excited. We're too excited. We're going to get too ahead of ourselves, and the Packers are going to come out and humble us at home like they always do. That was the big fear. The big fear, at least for somebody like me and fellow meatballs like Greg Braggs. Can't speak for everybody, but I really thought like we were going to be flying high, and the biggest thing was fighting the expectation that we were going to finally take down the Green Bay Packers. And now we're in like the complete opposite, a complete nightmare scenario that I don't even think the biggest of haters could have seen it coming. And if you did see it coming, it's because you're a hater. There was no respectable, now maybe not, maybe I was wrong. But in any event, we've got some great guys to talk about it, so I won't go on too much longer. Sammy, let's just go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
Brought to you by Circa Sports Illinois, the sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? It is time for Take It to the Rank. One of the best nights for football, for Chicago Bears talk, because not only do we have Take It to the Rank right now in about an hour and a half, 2 hours? I don't know. I don't do well with the time changes. The Tape Never Lies Network comes on with their great show. It's tradition on Wednesday night. We've got AEW. We've got the challenge. We've got all sorts of cool things going on, except what is happening with the Chicago Bears. It's a bad time in Illinois, but I will let you know that the world's largest sports book in Las Vegas is right at your fingertips in Illinois. The Circa Sports app is sports betting the way it should be. Bet anywhere in Illinois and experience high betting limits, better money line splits, more in-game betting, and the best customer service. Download your new bookie today. Visit circasports.com and start betting like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. And if you or someone you know has a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234. Great night, though, to talk about the Chicago Bears. Huge news over the last 48 hours. And to break it down for us, we were going to go to the three families of the Chicago Bears. From CHGO, we have got the guy who is traditionally here with us. We have got Greg Braggs. Greg, how are you doing this evening? I know we talked 2 nights ago, but how are you right now?
I'm still searching for the will to live, Adam. So that's where I'm at currently.
There's no amount of time. It sounds like you need a doctor. Can we get you a doctor? Because I know a doctor that makes house calls. And joining us from the Tape Never Lies Network, the guru himself, Draft Dr. Phil. These three faces on the screen at the same time. You know it's a momentous day. Draft Dr. Phil, it's been far too long. How are you living? You seem chipper in the green room. How are you holding up?
You know, it's got to the point where you're kind of used to the letdown now. So I'm trying to give myself that kind of therapy of understanding that the Chicago Bears, listen, I'm not going to be sitting here pretending that I didn't call this guy a shoe salesman a year and a half ago, and that it was imperative that Ryan Poles make the decision right after the season to fire Eberflus, because he's just even past history what you've done. And you could go on little Fox and Mitch and yada, 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 you know, the story. But here they do it again, right? And you just knew that this was coming, and it becomes so frustrating that, like Greg, it's how they control my life. I can't let that happen with this negligence in coaching. And it just, some people are looking at, I really like Thomas Brown. I like the shot that he's been given. It's way too late. It's too late. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. And you have terrible, terrible coaching. And not just X's and O's. And I know this is a long show. You're asking how I'm feeling. Just from
Please,
the
no,
coaching,
take your time. No, let it out.
Just from the coaching aspect of it. Forget the X's and O's. What has transpired on the football field is the showcase of a reflection of you as a head coach. So you have a responsibility to a young quarterback and the rest of those guys to set a tone that everybody is going to fall in line under. And there's an accountability line that everybody does. And as soon as you refrain from that, now all this shit is coming out about Keenan Allen. You could just see that the head coach has nothing that is said in the media about hits and accountability and we're together in there. All of that is crap. And guess what told me that? And Greg could bear witness to this because he heard me bitching about this over the phone months ago. On the tape, it shows no accountability because it keeps happening. There's no answers. There's no effort. When you're an accountable, maniacal head coach like Harbaugh, you're going to expect an expectation or the third string guy is going in the game and you understand that you have to give maximum effort. You should understand that as a veteran, but if you don't, you as the head coach have to hold that firm line and say it's not going to happen on this guy. I don't care who you are, Khalil Mack, whoever, Justin Fields, Mercedes Lewis, whoever Keenan Allen is going against what you are preaching and the goal of where you're going, you have to put it in line because it's going to affect everybody. And then guess what, Adam? Shit falls downhill, right? If I could swear, shit goes downhill, and I'll tell you this.
It's okay. We've opened the floodgates now. We're all good. Sammy's left the room. We've had to get the
Caleb Williams is going to be the beneficiary of that crap that goes downhill because all blame is going to go on the quarterback when you got veterans not giving maximum effort. Oh, I don't like that guy. He's too arrogant. That's the head coach's fault. That's the head coach's fault. He because of who you have, and you had a soft OC, and now Keenan Allen's talking. Yeah, we kind of went out there and were joking around and weren't taking it serious. This is the NFL.
Yeah.
And guess what, Adam? That behavior shows up on film. And guess who suffers for it? The team, the fans, and the rookie quarterback. It's just simple as that. And your head coach should have been out of town a while ago. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. That is my rant. Is how you should have finished that. No, I mean, I was just talking with Brian Baldinger earlier this afternoon on CHGO, and he was like, I go to Steelers Ravens every year, and it's amazing. That's like one of the hardest hitting games I go to every year. It just sounds different when you stand on the field and hear the way those guys hit. He's like, and then he pointed out like the different changes on the offensive line for the Ravens and different changes that the Steelers have had, whether it's players or coaches. And he goes, why is it that these guys can sustain different changes to their roster or their coaching staff, but it always feels the same, the tradition of who they are as franchises? And the Bears are not, they're unrecognizable. I don't see them. This is a broken team that Jared Payton was pleading with the other night, saying, who is this? Who are these guys? And, Phil says the keyword identity so much on his program. And I said, the answer is culture. It's culture. Right. And you talk about locker rooms and coaches that don't put up with crap. And Nate Davis being released today isn't something to be celebrated. It's just another slap in the face to what this organization has failed to do. And that's what Phil's talking about, holding players accountable in the moment. And Nate Davis has had chances time and again. He doesn't show up to training camp this year. At one point during camp, he's out there, he's like kicking the dandelions while the rest of the guys are fighting to make the roster, and it's 102 degrees. And then you don't not only not cut him, you start him week 1. That's rewarding that kind of behavior, and that's a trickle-down effect that Phil's pointing out to the rest of the team that is showing, well, he's allowed to do that, and he's still going to be a starter on this team. It's a bad precedent to set. The other thing that I'll point out that I think hasn't been spoken on is when Keenan Allen talks about, this stuff's been going on at OTAs and minicamp. If anybody had been to training camp, and I know, Adam, you got to go to one this year, and I've never seen anything like it. It was the first year of me going to training camp that I had ever seen a team warm up for an hour and 15 minutes of a 2-hour practice. Typically, the way a training camp practice goes is 30 minutes of walkthroughs and little one-on-one things, and then they start to sprinkle in team drills after the 30-minute mark and get an hour and a half of good work in. And, everything's about preservation at this point, but it really was way too conservative for my taste. We talked about it on our training camp recap shows every day. And now you look here later in the year and Keenan's talking about a lack of accountability and details during the summer. Well, I point to a lack of a lack of sense of urgency at training camp and getting as many quality reps in as you possibly can. And they weren't doing that at training camp.
This is a coaching issue. You're going to have all these little crappers out there, these fans that want to find blame. This isn't, I know the doctor's in the house, but this isn't the office where there's one symptom. We could go, Ryan Poles deserves a lot of this, but I'll tell you, as a head coach, I'm an offensive guy. So I'm calling plays and I'm the offensive guy. I've been that all the time. That's where I will go. As the head coach, though, I'm involved. You aren't going to be loafing on my defense. You represent my defensive coordinator. I'm getting in his grill. Listen, this is a big third down. I want 2 safeties here. It's 3rd and 15. Whatever it is, I'm involved in those things. To see and hear what Greg's talking about in practice, to see game days and people are talking on the sideline, Gallivan with Ashton Kutcher and company, all of this Hollywood. You haven't won nothing. You've done nothing. All you've done is change your haircut and grow a beard. And now all of a sudden, the same issues that reared their head under Getsy are rearing their head now with another soft guy that you hired because you're afraid of anybody with a big personality like myself or Greg that goes in there and says the truth, and you have to eat that humble pie or whatever it is. And it happened with Cliff Kingsbury. I know a lot of people don't want to use my name, but I will just tell you that he recognized that they didn't want him for fear that there'd be his personality would conflict with the coach, as well as people would recognize that he was a better head coach than the head coach. That's just simple truths for people to understand. The Chicago Bears need to hire alpha men when you're trying to change a culture that has been soft as puppy shit for the last 15 years. And that's the truth. And people can't. Olin Kreutz and I were texting about. It's like, it's not hard. You have to get guys that care about every rep. It can't be just spoken. It's got to be shown on Sunday. It's 3rd and 2, Adam. I don't give my young rookie quarterback the opportunity to check to nothing because it's going to be a 2-down territory. We're running the ball twice, and you're going to be up there in his ear. Okay, here we go. ISO power right, whatever they're calling. 85 going to be the fullback. We're going to get stuffed. you're going no huddle and we're running toss left. We're going to motion, whatever it's called. You got 2 plays in your pocket. None of them are a bubble screen. None of them are a throw. You're understanding situational football and you're playing chess, not checkers. And the Bears have not done that. They've not embraced running the football. If you look at this game, they go under center, they get 8 yards. They go under center, they get 7 yards. The next play, they're in pistol. The next play, they're in spread. It is no consistency. And the one iota of hope, the crack in the door, was listening to Tom Brown today, talking about having similar things and attacking them so you can counter off of these things. That's something Nagy couldn't understand. We all want to be the smartest offensive guy in the
right.
The shovel pass. Let's run this bubble screen, this trick play. We had a play this year under Shane Waldron. I laugh when people give this guy praise. There's a lot of shoe salesmen in this league. My uncle Sam Retigliano, coach of the Browns, he told me, went out and I was the head coach. He told me, listen, you'll understand. There's a lot of shoe salesmen in the NFL. I go, really? I'm a young coach, just starting out. How? Because it's a good old boy. They hire their buddies. They hire their friends. They hire someone I know him. Oh, Trace Armstrong's an agent. I got a guy for you. Oh, I'm convenient. I feel comfortable. No, it should be uncomfortable, McCaskies. I'm on a mini rant because it gets me so fired up. It does. It gets me the coaching issues that you see every Sunday.
Yeah.
Affecting your young quarterback. If you little clown boys can't see the difference in talent, you obviously are blind. The fact of the matter is the offensive line hasn't helped him. The coach that you all want fired has not helped him. And neither was the OC that you just fired wasn't helping this quarterback or this team. It's not rocket science. It isn't. I know there's a lot of nerds out there and a lot of analytics, but at the end of the day, who moves who off the line of scrimmage? That's how you win football games. Simple as that.
Yeah, and when you look at somebody like Dan Campbell and what he's done in Detroit, this is the thing too. When we sit here and we look at the well-manicured eyebrows of Matt LaFleur, when we look at KOC, when you look at those 3 teams objectively, not who we hate or who we don't hate, what is the one team of those 3 that you think is going to go out there and kick the shit out of the other 2 teams? What 2 teams are going to try to finesse their way to a victory, and what team is going to go out there and dominate them? And I think that's what's missing from the Chicago Bears right now, is somebody who will do that. And back in the day with Ditko, with all of his faults and everything like that, that's the kind of guy that we had. So I'll ask you, I'll start with you, Dr. Phil. How far does this go up? Because a couple of weeks ago, I talked to some people in NFL circles, and I'll clarify this for you. I know, Phil, we never were able to connect. When I was told what I reported, I laughed. I'm like, that's the dumbest. There's no way. I go, this thing could go completely south. Like I would never say that somebody's job is completely safe. I think for the longest time, we have felt like, well, Eberflus could end up getting run out of here. Does this now come to a point? Is Ryan Poles now culpable in this? Is he somebody? And listen, we sit here and we talk about like he finessed, he swindled the Panthers. He's made some good moves, but now we're starting to see Claypool, Nate Davis, some other things. I think now that keeping Matt Eberflus might be the most egregious thing that he's done, and it might not be something that you're able to come back from. What are your thoughts on that, Phil?
You're right. That is the most egregious thing, because you're never learning from history as an organization. So we saw this, and I produced a piece tonight for Keeping It 100, obviously a little humor in it, but it's damning to Ryan Poles. So a little teaser for you to check that out tonight, because I'll tell you, it's last year's end of the season presser. And with Ryan Poles talking about Eberflus and why he was retained, you just will get the story there. And it's so bad that it's so delicious because it's the complete opposite of truth. So that's the damning thing. You're 100% right, Adam. Can you come back from that? Yes. So a lot of people ask me, well, you knew that Eberflus was there, so why not just keep Justin instead of taking Caleb and ruining another quarterback? And I pause everybody because you don't know football when you ask that. It's like you don't pass up on talent better than what you got for fear of the coach there. They believed in the coach. They did, not me. I still believe that you always take and try to get better. Caleb Williams is an upgrade to Justin Fields. It's not even close. What isn't the problem? There's a stank. There's a smoking gun in the room, and people just want to point fingers at it. But the same problems persist no matter how many coaches get fired, Adam. But the same problem happens. The epic losses in the 95 percentile of winning, somehow your poorly coached head coach finds a way to lose. I always believe this. Losers know how to lose. It's just what they have. You're going to have to go the anti-McCaskey here. They're going to have to be big boys and big girls in their meetings and say, would we hire our own grandfather? They wouldn't.
No.
Think about that.
No,
They
yeah.
hire their own grandfather because he was too hot. He was too maniacal for them. So here we are here at this point where you're definitely going to need to do that. But can they come back from that? Yeah, they got to get the right head coach in here. And I don't know if it's Ryan Poles deserves the shot at that based on what he's done. To Greg, your point, accountability starts in the mission statement. So holding on to Nate Davis all that time doesn't show accountability. It shows negligence. Really. Now you finally did it. Okay. He's been a cancer in the locker room. Serious cancer, Greg, in the locker room for years, for since he's been here. He's causing antics and dramatics, making it about himself, not giving full 100% effort. So these things all fall on Ryan Poles. I believe you can fix this, and you have to get an alpha male in there. Somebody that makes the McCaskeys uncomfortable, that should be the prerequisite. And George should embrace that, because you never want a yes man as an assistant coach or any kind of coach for you. You want someone that believes in what they're doing and will win at all costs. That's football. I mean, everyone laughed. Who's laughed? If Jim Harbaugh's here, do we have a different record?
Huh.
Without a doubt, right? Because he understands the importance of the offensive line, running the football, and protecting the quarterback. You can't be talking about that in week 9. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to simplify this. We're going to run the ball. That's what bad cultures do. And there's no way to pretty up this pig that is Eberflus. He's horrible. He's a two-faced talker, and he's soft. Those things you can't. Every player in that locker room hated, and I will say this from sources in the know, they didn't like Shane Waldron. The coach knows that. They don't like you. So how do you change that? You do an open conversation, not these leadership groups that are private to a select group. It's everybody. Let's get it all out on the table. We got to be better, and it starts with me. He hasn't said that until this last week. Think about it. He's never once. He comes to the presser after every loss, epic, and lists off every positive that just transpired. And then he'll answer a question. That's it.
For me, Adam, it's I've been a big Ryan Poles advocate for a long time, and I haven't questioned that more than I have in the last week. That's just a reality, and I can't avoid it at this point. He didn't do what was necessary this week, and Shane Waldron's just a scapegoat. The players might not like him, or might not have agreed with all his play calls, and he might have made some different decisions at time that were bad coaching decisions. But like, to me, Caleb Williams absolutely needs to play better. But when you're talking about details, that's all Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Swift, Mercedes Lewis, Cole Kmet, all these different players have come to the media and said lack of details during the week, learning how to be a professional. What do you do when no one's watching? What do you do, when it's not, on the field with the cameras in your face? That's the mark of a true professional. And that starts with Matt Eberflus. And for you to fire Shane Waldron today, right, or yesterday, that's the right thing to do. But Matt Eberflus should have went with him. And that might be a hard decision to make, but you had to do it. And that to me is a big indictment on him. I can sit here and say, yeah, I wanted Jim Harbaugh, but I can also acknowledge the logic of why they stuck with Matt Eberflus too. I wouldn't have done it personally, but I can at least come around to the logic of it. Just like I can come around to the logic of the personnel decisions of trading for Keenan Allen, drafting Rome Odunze, and not really trying to hone in on everything you can on the offensive line. Hindsight is 20/20. Those gambles didn't work. But then once you understand that those gambles didn't work, you have to do what's necessary to make the changes in the moment. And that means cutting Nate Davis in the summer. That means firing Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron as soon as the game ended on Sunday. 100%. And they chose to kick that can down the road for a night and a half. We really don't even have real clarity on how that decision was made. And it wouldn't surprise me at all from the reports Tom Pelissero put out saying that they were just going to move Shane Waldron upstairs. It wouldn't surprise me if Kevin Warren finally jumped in at the end. It was either Kevin Warren or Ryan Poles that jumped in and said, enough's enough. Somebody's got to get the axe here. And so 100%. I don't exactly, there's all that speculation trying to figure out exactly how that went down. But I'm very disappointed in Ryan Poles. And at this point, it's hard for me to argue against the fact that he holds it just as much culpability as Matt Eberflus for the culture crumbling since the Hail Mary.
He believed in. I disagree with you. I can't, and nor could I, ever see a rational football decision for Matt Eberflus going forward. Then this little nugget comes out a few weeks ago that, he might have gotten a 5-year deal. Then I don't care if he had a 12-year deal. You're a $1 billion business with a guy that is running your ship into sinking it, absolutely destroying everything in its way. You can't do that again, and you still can't even take a look at past history. The past history doesn't align with it, so you as a GM have a responsibility. Like, it's a business. And there's amazing fans coming all over the world to support your football team, and you stick your nose up at them at every turn, whether it be Greg at camp and fans taking videos and them taking it away, to me going on this amazing trip with the team and seeing how they treat you like nothing. Like you don't even freaking matter, or our shit doesn't stink. And then how they handle their coaching and players. We're going to handle this guy good, but not this guy good. We're not going to own our mistake here, but we got to own it there. This guy. It's so small. It's terrible over and over again. And it starts with the McCaskies. Can't continue to be afraid of the big personality. I've said it. I wanted Harbaugh before Lovie Smith. Back then, I wanted Harbaugh here, right? So I love the Chicago Bears so much, and all of us have that same sickness. We're so in love with it. You listen to Olin Kreutz, former player who's been shit on by the McCaskies and the Bears himself, and he reeks of how much he loves this football team. I could go down all of these players that I talk to love the Bears, but they recognize the one problem is we're afraid of having another Ditka, a guy that's in there and is going to speak his mind, and he's going to hold everybody accountable. And it's honestly the penicillin to what they need. It really is. Mike Vrabel comes in here. He sets the tone of what the expectation. What is your identity? He doesn't have to go look at the tape. He doesn't have to go, we're going to look at that and evaluate it. He's going to tell you straight up, my identity is to get the best 5 offensive linemen and the best 5 defensive linemen to work with that young quarterback, and everything else will fall into place because we are going to run the football and we are going to disrupt the passer. That's what he's going to tell you. He's going to know his identity. Staying with the next guy. And the next guy. All the guys. Think about the guys they passed on. It's not revisionist history. It's just us sitting there. I can't believe you passed on Bruce Arians for this guy. Right? It's not. It's not. Like, it's just the reality of what this organization has been afraid to do. And listen, Greg, you can't even go into the press room and ask a question because you're Greg, right? But they'll let other people go in there. God forbid you ask that tough question. You might not get your media pass or whatever, your credentials. No, that's the complete opposite of everything this country stands for and this great game stands for. It's football at the end of the day. And when you make it a corporate Bears, which it is, they're corporate run. Everything's filtered and functioned through these corporate guys. They never will understand where the heartbeat of your football team is in the most important of all of the positions, the head coach. The head coach. He's the guy the team is going to reflect. That's why the Steelers have been consistent winners, because they've had 3 coaches that understood who they were and weren't going to accept anything other than what their expectation is. That's why you have those good cultures.
Isn't that what Kevin Warren is supposed to do? Because everything that you're saying, and again, I don't mean to keep pointing to our rivals in the North, but like all these problems that we're talking about, like for years, everybody was talking about the Lions the same way. The Ford family wasn't willing to make that investment, wasn't willing to make that commitment, wasn't willing. Look at the coaches they had hired, like Caldwell, Bobby Ross, like all these guys. Like they had Wayne, like look at all the coaches. And then finally somebody stepped up and said, you know what? We're going with a guy like Dan Campbell. And he's going to bring a new culture to this team. And I'm fearful too. When everybody talks about Ben Johnson, like, Ben Johnson needs to be. How much of Ben Johnson is him benefiting from Dan Campbell? Like, because Ben Johnson does a lot of weird shit that the Bears love to do. Like the Doug Kramer thing, that's influenced because the Lions do that stuff all the time. But they also have a different culture, and they're at a different point of the rebuild. And so for me, I'm looking right now, who is the person who is going to save us? Who is going to make that tough call? Greg, who is going to be the guy who steps up and say, this is exactly what we need to do?
Well, certainly I've reevaluated that opinion over the last week. When you keep hearing the players time and again talk about we need someone to coach us harder. That's what Mercedes Lewis said after the Colts game. Then you're hearing player after player and player talking about attention to detail or lack thereof, what we're doing during the practice week, and accountability. Ben Johnson seems like the right answer. I'm assuming if he's the next Kyle Shanahan seems like the type of guy that certainly demands accountability from his 49ers. That's why they run like a well-oiled machine. So I'm not ruling him out, but he has to check that box. I don't know how we'll ever know that. And that's another fear I have of Ryan Poles. He's picked Matt Eberflus is his head coach and chose to stick with him, whether you want to say he was married to him initially or not, regardless, he's on your resume. And then he agreed to Luke Getsy and Shane Waldron. So this is
He admitted he hired both of those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is him. This is who he's identifying as what's best for the offense. Now I got to trust that you're going to know for sure Ben Johnson is that guy. And so now that I take a step back, I am strongly considering. I mean, I'm looking at Ben Johnson and a guy like Cliff Kingsbury. Obviously, we're all looking at how can they get the most out of the number one pick in the franchise quarterback, because ultimately that's going to play a big part in this team's success over the next 5 years. But as you look at the bigger picture in the team, you now have to consider guys like Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick, even at the age of 72. As a fan, I'm going to consider those things because now I'm looking at they need somebody to get in there and shake this whole operation up at Hallis Hall. Now, will the Bears do that? That's a different question. I don't know if they're willing to pay a guy like Ben Johnson or Cliff Kingsbury. I think
that's gotta stop. That's got to stop, Greg.
Well, I mean, I know it's got to stop, but this is what we deal with here in Chicago. I mean, Jerry Reinsdorf must be stopped with the Bulls and the White Sox, but he's not stopped.
But the NFL,
but he won't do it. This is what we have to deal with ownership in Chicago is people that need to stop their ways, and they never do. And George McCaskey, to this point, has not shown me enough trust that I can sit here and say with certainty that they're going to do what they have to do to make the right decision here. Kevin Warren is the wild card. Kevin Warren is the wild card here.
100%.
And now he's been in here long enough.
He has to step up, Greg. Right. So if he was the guy that said, bro, this isn't going to look good because you just pushing this guy up top, people are going to wonder, is he still involved in this crap offense? You did the right thing, whoever stepped in. But the reality is they really didn't do the right thing because it should have been Eberflus. And you hope Kevin Warren is the wild card that's going to stand with his Rolodex of people he knows and understand and listen to the underground, the three networks here that are talking the truth and standing up for it and saying you have to get an alpha in there that's going to stand in front of the locker room and demand what your culture is going to be. And that's only going to help. I don't care. Anybody can know X's and O's. You can learn it. You don't even have to play and you can learn it, right? You need someone under there that's going to hold the administration accountable, understand what kind of player is good for your culture. You know, Eberflus had to sign off on Nate Davis. They had to sign off on Chase Claypool. They had to sign off on these guys that aren't alphas, that aren't aggregators of energy towards winning. Those types of things are what a head coach brings to the table, a good head coach. People laughed at Dan Campbell. Let's not rewrite that history. Oh, he's a big meathead. Look at this guy, bite ankles. 100%. Look at this guy. But Bill Parcells endorsed this guy. And for me, Bill Parcells stands on a level with Bill Walsh. That's how highly I think of Bill Parcells. He's an amazing motivator of professional talent, probably maybe the best ever. I could put that up there. Noah, look what he dealt with LT, for God's sake, getting the most out of that guy. This guy endorses someone and the McCaskies run away from it. That's a problem. And that's where they have to go. Can't have the Bill Polians and the Ernie Accordzis helping you. You need some real football people. And you got a guy in the backyard. I know I brought his name up twice, but I've always said Olin Kreutz just gets it. He just understands. You know, me and him don't agree on everything, and that's fine. But I know he gets who needs to stand in front of the room to command attention and set an expectation. Because what you have right now is utter chaos, and people get offended. But when you're the head coach, you can't let the players run the ship. You just can't. You have to be uncomfortable and set the tone. There might be a fight, There might be a freaking fight. It might be a few swears, Adam, on Hard Knocks or Soft Knocks. There might be an attention to the person and the expectation that you have. It ain't going to church with Ginny McCaskey. Ginny, whatever the heck her name is. Virginia. I called her Ginny Italian. Ginny McCaskey. That ain't the prerequisite. It's winning games. And if they got so scared, I mean, look at Georgia's record. His hires. Do you have that stat? It's they haven't gone to the playoffs. They haven't
since they fired Lovey.
Correct. They haven't. What have they done? They've hired every wrong coach.
Yeah, which always
I'm on the record. People go, "Oh, you hated Justin." I did not. I believed in that kid.
No. We love Justin Fields.
Here's how much I wanted Harbaugh. And I know Shane pointed this out on our show because he put me to the test. If Harbaugh wants Justin Fields, would you take 100%? Whatever he says, I know it's coming from a football guy. So he would be the precursor to what it is that you need in your locker room. So that's how much I believe in the head coach. And listen, what's the common denominator of all this failure? All the fired head coaches and offensive coordinators. Greg, how many have there been? I know you talked about it before.
Well, I think they've fired 8 coaches underneath Matt Eberflus, 2 offensive coordinators, and I don't even think that includes Phil Snow. So
Phil Snow, we forget about Phil Snow.
We forget about him. I do want to ask you one thing, though. And before I do that, I want to let everybody know that at Windy City Sports Cards, they specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports. Whether you are a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, or Sky, they have got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles. In addition to their Chicago-focused items, they also offer a vast collection of sports trading cards and memorabilia from your favorite teams and players. And we do know that things are not going well in Chicago right now. We've mentioned the quarterback a couple of times. Phil, I want to ask you your confidence in Caleb Williams. I know that a lot of the problems stem from the coaching situation, but are you still a big believer in Caleb Williams?
100%. I'm not saying that he is free from fault. He's got to play better.
Yeah.
But I think that we get caught up in what is going on Sundays without the big picture. And I'll show some of that tonight in tape as well. But you're looking at 2 left tackles that have gone out. Then you get Larry Bourne, who hasn't played since whenever. Last Washington game, last season. He's been out all preseason, comes back often. He's starting right out the gate, going in, and he's awful. Then you put your right guard, your backup right guard, Nate Davis, you saw all of this minutia on the offensive line personnel. They don't know who they're picking up. Your center is soft, and it's a rookie trying to learn, and you're dropping back 42 times. I mean, these things have to be put in proper perspective. I know you want the stats, and you saw what happened at the Jags game, and you're thinking they're building off it, but this has been a poorly coached football team. And when you add injuries to your starting positions on the offensive line, but yet you don't change schematically and get in 12 personnel more, be conservative, run the ball, and allow that time frame for these replacement, if we want to even call them that, offensive line to go in there. I mean, that's what good coaches do. So I'm not freaking worried about Caleb Williams. I think Caleb's got to wake up, and he's got to be, unfortunately, a better pro and understand that the coaches aren't going to save you here, obviously. So you're going to have to buy in and do everything in your power to get everybody on the same page. And I think Thomas Brown, at least, I'm not going to get fooled by the rhetoric, his statement. I want to see what he's going to do. But everything he said today was absolutely from a football perspective, the right thing. The right thing.
Well, the biggest
gotta
thing
hold him accountable. You got to hold Caleb accountable. All his receivers. I mean, DJ Moore's laughing. Yeah, I think we can run harder. I'm paraphrasing. I think we can give more.
Well,
that's unacceptable to any that's falling under my watch. I'm losing it on my receiver coach, my offensive coordinator. Sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, the biggest thing he said to me in his press conference today was, I like to be direct. I'm gonna be myself, and that is being direct with people. And that is exactly what this team needs. And when we can talk about the play calls, and everyone's kind of lining up now, talking about the drop back not lining up with the routes, and I get all that. And the O-line has certainly had its injuries, but Caleb needs to control what he can control. And if you listen to the tea leaves through the players, Caleb included, each one of these veterans are talking about attention to detail, learning how to be a professional. They're talking about the young guys, and that is Caleb included. And Caleb on Monday or after the game, he was asked, it was either after the game or on Monday, he was asked, what is something you're trying to get better at? And one of the things he said was asking about the details during the week of practice. And my whole contention was, A, he needs to get better at those things, but B, the fact that he has to ask for those is an indictment on the coaches that aren't drilling the details into him every single day. So that's why Shane Waldron was shown the door, but also Caleb Williams needs to hold his own accountability to being ready for game day on Sunday. And he talked about it today where he said, some of these sacks last week were on me. You're absolutely right, they were. And so he's got to get his timing down, take what the defense gives him, keep his footwork clean, and understand what he's doing when he comes to the line of scrimmage. Now, if you want to have a different take on the coaching staff putting too much on his plate, I'd hear that conversation. I had that conversation with many after week 2 when the Texans almost took his head off, where he almost took his own head off by him, because that's the thing that people need to understand. When he's walking to the line of scrimmage, he's changing the play. He's calling the play. He's calling the protection. So it's not just about taking sacks because he's holding on to the ball too long. He's also dictating what the play is and at times what the protection or whether it's going to be a run or a pass. That's a lot. It's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask for a rookie. I understand that. So at the end of the day, he has to control what he can control, get the ball out of your hands.
Pause there, Greg. Pause there.
Always has to be clean. Like the detail stuff is on him. The schematic and game plan is on the coaches.
But pause there. What you just said, because listen, I've coached for a long time in my life. So to know what a quarterback has to do pre-snap just with a play call that I've called, without them changing protection, without them changing whether it's going to be pass and run. And now this is going on. And then you have a guy that's not a good offensive coordinator on top of it. And you have one of the worst offensive line coaches in the NFL, despite what Matt Eberflus tried to tell you. You don't marry an offensive line coach with a new offensive coordinator. They don't know each other. That's the head coach, offensive line coach is second most important thereafter. You better get the right guy. Morgan has been horrific. I laugh at people. Me and Cap, I go, Cap, let's watch tape and I'll show you. There's no teaching fundamentals. There's no solid rules that should be applied here. So now you're in a shitty culture with a bad offensive coordinator, with you getting the opportunity to change plays and check with me's and under RPO. No, that's you as the head coach. That is way too much for a rookie. And now you're going to have veterans blaming him, saying this guy, oh, he's too arrogant. I've been around this game. Now the fingers from the veterans start going towards the rookie because it's under your watch as the head coach and the offensive coordinator. You've made this problem. So I don't care if it's Michael Jordan at quarterback, the best athlete of Tom Brady, best ever. He's a rookie. Now you're giving him all this responsibility. You stink as a head coach. You got all line injuries. Your offensive coordinator stinks. And now we got fans blaming everything on Caleb. He's a bust. Are you kidding me? You're not even watching. This is a complete, it's like trying to raise a child in the most negligent situation and think that kid's going to grow up and have the greatest advantages of everybody. It's just not. It's coaching negligence all over the tape, all over the culture, and it's coming out. Keenan Allen, you came here as a veteran. You should have gotten all these guys in line. You're hamming it up with them. That's on Poles and Eberflus. So to expect this to be something that Caleb can overcome when the whole world and all these talking heads were laughing at the culture that the Chicago Bears are, and we thought that somehow Matt Eberflus was going to change it because he had a backbone. No. And all those 8 captains, all of them, should be ashamed of themselves too. Because if I name a captain that's going to not accept any of that crap. So I don't care who they are. You get in the rookie's face, wake up. All of them, including the veterans. They're all a problem. Cole Kmet, Keenan Allen, Caleb Williams. They're all the 2 linebackers, whoever the freak's the captain this week. But
I still think though, and by the way, I know it was minute 51 when you finally stopped saying the S word and you self-corrected to crap. That was a good move. Like we finally got that. Actually gives me hope for this week that maybe, hey, you finally. But ultimately, but you're right. Like I obviously with Keenan Allen and all those guys, and you want to put blame on the players and everything like that. But I think what you said before, leading up to this, and this goes for anybody who coaches any sport at any level, and I'm going to throw myself into this as well. It's like, yeah, but you have to be on top of the players. You are ultimately the one who 100%. Lets the players not be prepared, not be ready to go. And you know what? And it's tough. Like it's tough. Like even like for me, like having to tell parents of 9-year-olds, like, hey, this is my fault. Like I should have done this better. Like sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow, but you got to do it. And when you have a professional who's being paid millions of dollars to do this, to answer these questions, who's unwilling to go out there and be like, you know what? A lot of things that's happening, this is my fault. There should have been a change after week 1. Actually, no, you actually nailed it after the Houston game. And this is always something that I, trying to always find the bright spot and being like, listen, our quarterback is being asked to do things that are different. He could be playing in another system with Cliff Kingsbury and only throw to the right side of the field, and he would probably be on his way to winning Rookie of the Year, but they've given him more of a challenge. The only problem is the people who are asking him to do that aren't doing it because they have some master plan of we're really developing this guy. It's like, we don't really know what we're doing. And we're just relying on Caleb Williams' smarts to keep our jobs safe and to make us look better than we really are. So in the closing moments, though, through all this that's going on, and we're speculating about potential coaches and everything like that, what the hell is going to happen this weekend? Like, I'm very fearful of what is going to happen. Like this is not the time that I want Packers week. I'm very fearful of what's going to happen. Greg, what are we going to expect on Sunday?
Well, I think as you've seen with many different teams, when a change is made like this, I think you will see a pep in their step and a sense of urgency coming out the gate. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they, God forbid, scored on their first drive. They've rarely done that all year.
Now you're talking crazy.
Maybe even take the first lead of the game and not let the other team score first like they have in the first 9 games. But ultimately, this team has a lot of flaws, and you're only going to be able to take that pep in your step. And, it's going to be hard to throw a knockout punch on Green Bay. This is a team that has more focus and is much further along in where they're at as a team. And so to me, I don't think it's going to be very close on Sunday. I could see the Bears putting up a fight early on, and then little by little as the game goes on, I think Green Bay will win the war of attrition. I mean, you're talking about a team that is one of the tops in the leagues in takeaways, one of the tops in the league in sacks. And this is an offense that's struggling on so many different levels. You got receivers that are having trouble getting open. You have an O-line that's injured. You might have them coming back, but even when they're fully healthy, they certainly have their flaws. I mean, it's an offensive line that leads the league in false starts. And then you've got a rookie quarterback now trying to work with a new offensive coordinator and trying to understand the game plan he's going to try to implement here. It's going to take a heck of an effort for the Bears to pull an upset at home. So I wouldn't rule anything out any given Sunday, as they say, but I think it's a tall order to expect the Bears to beat the Packers here on Sunday. So I don't feel great about Sunday, but I'm hoping to see a team give a lot better effort than I've seen the last 2 weeks.
Phil, how about you?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the whole team as a whole. I do think, I'm excited to see how Thomas Brown handles formational usage and personnel usage on Sunday. I feel like Waldron was absolutely clueless. It's going to, and how you got leverage and you sometimes even went away from the leverage side, whether that's because Caleb called it wrong. That's on you as a head. You should not give that kind of call to your young quarterback until they grasp the whole offense. I feel there's so much about coaching that a lot of fans don't want to give, but there's coaching is the most important thing. There's talent in the NFL is a 10% rule. My uncle Sam Rutigliano called it. It's a 10% rule. Everybody's talented. There's that 10% where some rosters have a little bit more, and it's up to you as the coach to squeeze out that 10% to get your team in that competition mode where you could go on any given Sunday and win. So it's not like the Bears aren't talented enough on paper to win. Defense, were they locked in? No. Montez, is he back? They had injuries along the defensive line, so you worry about that. But I don't know what I'm going to predict the score. I don't have much confidence whatsoever in the Chicago Bears run by Matt Eberflus. To pick Matt Eberflus to win a game against Green Bay where I think he's only beat the Lions as far as division opponents.
We beat the Minnesota Vikings last year.
Oh, yeah, with Dobbs.
A 12-9 game.
Dobbs. And we had like 4 picks in that game.
Yeah. Couldn't
score then, Ghost of Judah. So I don't know what to predict in regards to score. The Thomas Brown story for me, how do they function offensively is going to be my huge focus this weekend for the Chicago Bears. And it might be the impetus of something different for the Bears. Like, what did you term it, Greg? A little excitement, fire under them?
Like the Saints last week against the Falcons.
But that's with the head man.
Yeah.
But you might get some of that with Thomas Brown. As long as you're a straight shooter and you're fair and you have your line and everyone knows it, then you're going to get the most out of your team. That's what gets me so angry, the lies at Hallis Hall.
Yeah.
If you could just be honest and be hard at the same time and have everybody fall in line, you can have a sense of humor about it. And people will buy in. They know that there's respect there. The Bears right now are run by a guy that's a bull-faced liar, and he's not a very good head coach or leader of men. And it's easily leaked out into the media, and it's where we are. I don't know if we're cursed. I don't want to say that.
No, never say that.
I just think George McCaskey has to let go of any kind of fear. And if it's Ryan Poles, are you giving him another shot at hiring a coach?
That's the toughest one for me. It really is. And much like Greg, it's like I would never have even fathomed this months ago coming into the season. I still had a little bit. I'm like this weak-willed of like, I wanted Harbaugh, but I'm like, all right, we're going with Eberflus. Like, okay, they finished strong. They won 7 games. Fine. They're going with Caleb. Like, it's okay. And I thought that I didn't like the Waldron hire that much.
Me either.
When it was happening, because I'd always felt too that a lot of the success that Shane Waldron took from Geno Smith was really on Dave Canales. Like, he was the mastermind. Dave Canales was there 3 years ago. Geno throws 30 touchdowns. Canales goes to Tampa Bay, and Geno throws 20. And you're like, and you're even seeing it now, where Geno's fine, but it's like, yeah, he's not the 30 touchdown guy that everybody thought he was. So you got to be very difficult. You got to be very, very suspicious with that. And again, it comes down to this thing. Like, there's going to be a lot of guys that come up. Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, like all these, like Todd Monken, like all these guys. And I know the Bears have traditionally not gone for the retreads. The one time they did, it was the absolutely worst choice you could have ever made, with going with John Fox. Like, that was so readable. Like, a guy gets fired. And this is the thing about the Bears that I'll never like this. Okay, so you had an opportunity to hire a guy who was the reigning NFL coach of the year. We're like, too old and he's a retread. Like, okay, so you went with the hot name, Mark Trestman. Okay, and then when you find they're like, we're going to go with the retread, you went with the guy who was fired for not winning a Super Bowl, and the guy who replaced him won the Super Bowl. But that was the guy that you felt worthy of it. I hope that there's somebody in this organization, and that Ryan Poles, maybe who knows what he says behind closed doors. Maybe this is the thing. And I think we talked about this Monday night on CHGO about like, he had such a tough time cutting a small school running back who broke his leg. And it's like, Jesus, when are you going to be able to make any tough decision? Like, this isn't AYSO. Like, you
laugh at that, Adam, but there's truth to the keeping of Matt Eberflus.
Yeah,
I was told that Kevin Warren wanted Eberflus gone. That he allowed. So that's where Greg.
I think that's it. I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago when I first was talking about the people that I knew and what they said. And I said, Ryan Poles, and there's posts of this. He's played a dangerous game. I admire him for sticking up for him, but at the same time, like, this is what you decided. You decided, like, it makes me question your judgment of if, like, you know what, you are really going to tie yourself to this player or this coach or whatever. And it's unfortunate, but listen, we've run out of time. We got to let Phil go and recalibrate. And we're going to come back and we're going to watch you on the Tape Never Lies Network. Greg's doing 100 different things for CHGO. I want to thank you both for being here. This was very therapeutic for me. I love being out here too. And I love hearing the emotion in your mouth, coming out of your mouth and all that stuff, because it shows there is a vulnerability. Like, that's the thing. Like, people, like, listen, all three of us are the same. We all cry on camera and we all do that stuff. You know what? Like, Dan Campbell does that too. I've seen other hard-ass coaches get very emotional, and it's a good thing to have. They're not sitting there worried about their coiffed hair and their beard and all that stuff. They're going out there and having real emotions and real feelings. So I want to thank you guys for being here.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Love you, brother.
All right. Well, I love the both of you, and I love everybody who is joining us here this afternoon. Thank you so much for the comments. Obviously, we didn't get to them, but we will be back later this week for the sick picks. We got the Tyler Scott Show also coming up this week. So a lot of great stuff coming up. Appreciate you being here. Like and subscribe. Do all that stuff. Follow CHGO. Follows the Tape Never Lies. For Greg and Draft Dr. Phil, I'm Adam. Sammy, go ahead and play us out and bear down.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcast. Brought to you by Circa Sports Illinois.